Hi, how are you? Welcome to the Essential Channel. I am now with the Federal Minister of Transportation, Omar Alghabra, who just a few minutes ago made an important announcement related to the flights between Canada and Colombia. Welcome, Minister Alghabra. How are you?
I am great, Isabel. It's nice to see you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, and thanks for this opportunity to bring your message from the Minister of the Transportation to our Latin American diaspora and also another diasporas, and especially the Colombians. You have a great announcement for Colombian immigrants and Canadians who likes to be in Colombia, especially in this cold weather. So let's talk about this announcement. A few minutes ago, you mentioned an expanded air transportation agreement between Canada and Colombia. What is this and what is important to know?
Sure. First of all, typically, countries have agreements that govern air traffic between them. And those agreements are called air transport agreement. And Canada has agreements with almost every country, not almost, but certainly most countries around the world. And we've always had an agreement for the last many years with Colombia that allows 14 passenger flights a week plus 14 cargo flights a week. What we announced today was the expansion of that agreement by lifting the cap, the limit on the number of flights. So now Canadian Airlines, designated Canadian Airlines, or designated Colombian Airlines can fly between our two countries without a limit on the number of flights. And that's, of course, means great news for people who want to travel to Colombia, people who want to travel to the region, businesses who want to ship more product or import more product, businesses who have employees traveling between the two countries, because it offers more options, more scheduled flights. So it's great news, I think, for businesses and Canadians.
Yeah, of course. And definitely this announcement from the federal government of Canada means Colombia is important for Canada. And we know Colombia and Canada have a free trade agreement since 2008. This announcement is part of this free trade agreement?
It's not part of the free trade agreement, but it certainly feeds into it. So air transport agreements are separate from the trade agreement, but it's certainly connected because when you have a free trade agreement, you're encouraging more trade between the two countries, more movement of goods, more movement of people, and by expanding options for flights between our two countries, you're only facilitating more that free trade agreement. And by the way, Colombia is the largest air destination in Latin America for Canada. It is the largest air market for Canada in Latin America. So this further builds on the nature of relationship that we have between our two peoples, between our two countries.
Great, and definitely this is important. And what are the specifically benefits for the travelers, as you mentioned, the business people going to South America and going to Colombia? They will have more options, of course, more different destinations, different ways to fly, and different airlines. They can put more than 14 flights and cargo a week, right?
That is correct. So on average, 14 a week. That means 2 flights a day. Most of the flights from Canada tend to be from Toronto and Montreal because that's where most of the community is. Now, the cap is lifted, so you can have more than 14 flights a week, which means you'll have more frequent flights, which means we'll have more convenient options for travelers, so they don't have to wait for a certain time or a certain day. So yeah, it's really great news. Again, not only for individuals who want to travel to Colombia, who want to travel to Latin America, but it's great news for businesses. Now they'll have more options to schedule flights that fit their own schedule instead of having to wait for those specific flights.
Okay, Minister Alghabra, and definitely this is a great time for this announcement because the holiday season is around the corner. And for sure, many Latin American, Canadian Latin Americans will go to South America and specifically to Colombia and take advantage of this important announcement. What can you tell us about the measures, the healthy measures that they still in place from the Canadian government regarding the protection against COVID?
We currently don't have any mandatory public health measures at our borders. We still recommend that people wear masks on plane, but those masks are not mandatory. But those days when we had these extraordinary measures are hopefully behind us, and we needed to do what we had to do to protect the health and safety of Canadians. Right now, obviously, we still have COVID, and we encourage people to be cautious, but we don't have any mandatory requirement, including ArriveCan. Now, ArriveCan can be used, so the traveler, when they arrive, can have a much faster processing time at the border, but it's no longer mandatory.
So definitely it's a good news. So the recommendation is, even though Canada is not requiring again the vaccination or something like that, but you suggest the travelers and the public just to keep that measure, that take some cover on the face, on the mask,
Absolutely.
right?
We still recommend vaccination. We still recommend masking. We still recommend caution because, as you all know, COVID is still with us. Our hospitals are still busy. We still hear of our friends and neighbors and colleagues getting sick. So it's really prudent for people to follow the advice of their doctors and public health experts, but we don't have any mandatory measures right now.
Okay. Minister Alghabra, could you say the tourism industry is recovering after 2 years of this pandemic? What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. Look, the pandemic has, I just said, has been an extraordinary time. Countries around the world, provinces in Canada, the federal government put in place extraordinary measures. And we did this to protect the health and safety of Canadians. But those measures have had a massive impact on our economy and caused a lot of disruption. So the airline sector, tourism suffered a lot at a time when we were trying to sort out what COVID is, when we were still waiting for vaccination. And now the good news is that you could see a return to busy season of tourism, of travel, and you said the Christmas season is coming up. So it's good news. But I know that it's been really difficult on people who work in the tourism sector, people who work in the airline sector. Tourism is extremely important to Canada. I know Canadians also love to travel abroad, including going to Colombia. So it's important, I know, for Colombia. So I think it's great now that to look forward to being able to travel, to enjoy your vacation, to enjoy Christmas holidays. And so I'm relieved, but also I want to remind Canadians again to be cautious, to follow public health measures, and to just be aware wherever they choose to go, to just keep to follow the advice that exists on the Global Affairs website.
Okay, Minister, I know you are busy. I appreciate your time. And finally, I just want to ask you a quick question regarding our community. I know you are a Liberal MP from the Mississauga Center, and this is the place of many immigrants, Latin American immigrants living there. So What do you think about our community, Latin American community? Have you ever been in any Latin American country? Do you know 1, 2 words in Spanish?
First of all, the Latin community in Mississauga adds so much spice and liveliness to our city. I've been to the Latin Festival at Celebration Square. Enjoyed the art, the culture, the dance, the music, the food. So the Latin culture is an integral part of Canadian identity, of the people who live in Mississauga, and I am proud to represent part of the city that has so many Latin Canadians. I have indeed visited Latin America. I've been to Brazil and I've been to Peru during when I was parliamentary secretary. So I've enjoyed the food there, the weather, the culture, our diplomatic relations, and met so many people who have friends and relatives in Canada from these two countries. So it was really a lot of, it was fun, but also very educational for me when I visited these two countries.
Okay, Minister of Transportation of the federal government, Omar Alghabra, thank you so much for being in this space, and thank you so much for reach me and reach the contact with Latin American community, because our community is a strong community and we have too much to give also to Canada. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Thank you.
Okay, and gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias. Hey.